and woke. Mr. Grinley, the floor is yours.
I hear you, Doc. It's funny what comes to mind when you look around. A song came to mind
Mm.
as I kind of been listening. All the people were singing when Titanic going down.
Mm.
It There's things that I grab at as they kind of go through my mind. And sometimes I think we're focusing on the wrong man.
Mm.
Nobody is taking stock of what JD is doing. And 47, he might not know it, but he's on the way out. You can't undo that stack of years.
Mm.
And even as we look at our communities, we don't even know what the right questions are.
Mm.
We don't know if we came up with some answers. If we look at folk in their face and say, look, a day is coming when you're going to have to make a choice. Nobody knows why why this guy Hexet called all of these military people into one spot. To think that he called them there to tell them, look, you have to do PT every day is a little naive to me.
Mm.
A lot of them that might not be able to go back to their jobs were flown to where they were flown to
Mm.
on a military ticket. Now, if you are a general in this gathering and you're fired, where are you going to go back to? How are you going to get back to that?
Mm.
So it's like I keep wondering what's the right question to ask to generate a sensible response. What does being woke mean? What does being aware, what are we being aware of? We're looking at the country being systematically dismantled. To whose benefit? And that's what concerns me is we don't really know what to focus our concern on. I used to think that the Russians knew something about 47 that we didn't know. Some of us might have heard me mention my thoughts along that line. And it concerns me that perhaps the person we should be looking out for, because vice presidents don't have no large function. But when the vice president is maybe a little over half the age of the president, and the former president ran into some issues that showed up as he aged, we just have to wonder if we aren't caught up in the smoke and mirrors thing. And that's what scares me, because none of the analysts seem to be saying to me they have a clue what to analyze and what the analysis is going to do for us. So it's the systematic dismantling that concerns me, because it's really systematic. That's just my concern, Coach.
Mm.
Just my concern.
Thank you. Thank you for that. And you have the right to that concern. You have the right. And you brought up another good point about why we have to be awoke and how we have to be aware. There was a time frame where they expected us here as African Americans just to just go with the flow. You know, this it's not our problem. It those situations, those above our pay grade, or we just here just to be good workers. And no, we're not like that anymore. And why the whole DEI attack or the dismantling of the diversity, equity, and inclusion programs was the same way that they attacked affirmative action and got rid of affirmative action, was that they started to recognize. We started to move in more of an even space because see, education, and this is one of the things we have to remember. Education is an equalizer because now, once a person becomes educated, now all of a sudden they're really thinking, they're pondering. You're not just moving haphazardly. You're not just moving as if you're on the base level of the hierarchy of needs. Now you're starting to become an intellectual. Now you're starting to figure out, okay, how to be a little bit more empowered. And as they started, first they noticed, because there was a time frame, especially starting from the 70s, when Black women started to become much more educated than Black men. So we were dealing with that disparity. And then the whole thing, the attack on the Black family and dismantling the Black family and the fragmentation of that. So we can never knock our women for going out there and making sure that they got educated and became aware and they were able to at least go out into the marketplace or the corporate world. Now they started noticing that. So wait a minute, okay, these Black women are starting to get too smart now. They're starting to move up into these C-suites. And now all of a sudden they're starting to run stuff. And now they're becoming entrepreneurs and putting stuff in the marketplace. Wait. That's not how the system was meant up. And then when you look at the African American males, now we're catching back up and saying, okay, now excuse me, we're starting to make definitive strides of less incarceration and now more knowledge seeking. So wait a minute. So now you got smart Black women, and you got Black males now that's starting to recognize, wait a minute, I'm gonna get myself in tune and start to look in those spaces so I can be in academia as well. Not just to be on par with the Black women, but to recognize this builds me up because now I'm thinking differently. I'm not thinking just from the hood. So wait a minute. So let's start getting rid of these programs the same way Hexpeth was speaking today, talking about all those programs they're eliminating, and all this stuff that we honor these people and honor those people. We're getting rid of all of that. We're not honoring no one. And just as you made the statement, telling generals that some of these people could be around my age in their 50s, talking about you got to get PT. We're no longer going to have fat soldiers or this, that, and a third. And if the women want to come into my army, that they had to be, they should be as strong as a man. Like, wait a minute, what are you, what is, wait, stop. You're saying this stuff. This is not us doing, and that's why I always go back to the word hyperbole. It's not us going back and forth saying, okay, we're just making these assumptions and they're saying some crazy stuff that we're thinking this is what they're saying. No, these people are bold enough to let you know what's being said in your face. That's where the wokeism has to stay more paramount. That's where the awareness level has to stay. That's when you're walking around and recognizing, yo, let me keep my antennas up. Because I'm not just I'm just going about my own business. And whoa, you got to be head on a swivel, not from a fearful space, but like, no, I'm full of faith. But I'm dumb enough to know it's like, we not those people from the 50s or the 40s where you think you're going to slap us and we're going to give you the other cheek. You're going to slap us and you're probably going to end up on the ground. Because we're not having it. We recognize what you're doing. And now we're more cemented within ourselves and we're becoming much more aware for ourselves how we're well positioned so that we're not second-class citizens. We're not 3/5 of a person, even though that's still in the Constitution. We are God-faithful individuals who are not having it. We're aware of our financial power. we're aware of what's going on in politics, so we can be at least aware and recognize some of these people need to be voted out. And that's where we have to come more strong as a community and recognize having these type of conversations so we're not stuck and just saying, oh, that's just how it's go. No, no, no. That's the possibility that keeps us behind the eight ball. So, oh, that's just how it's go. No, no, no. And we're responsible for that, especially for those generations that's coming behind, especially us as Gen Xers or the boomers who are in front of us. And I know next up was Mr. Osasami because I saw when he had his hand raised. Mr. Osasami, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Clark. Well, if you would ask me 5 years ago, I would have been one of those people that said, hey, this doesn't affect me. They'll figure it out. But as of right now, I I work in the community to develop workforce housing.
Mm,
I've been working over the last year to make Monticello a pro-choice community so that we can get workforce housing here to incorporate affordable housing for people that, make a certain income.
mm,
And a lot of the programs that we utilize, so we're working with DASNY, which is the Dormitory Authority of the State of New York, as well as HCR, the Homes and Community Renewal. They are a state funded, but they're also intertwined with federal funding as well. So
mm,
right now, we are looking to be in a space of pivoting into probably some more private funding because with this halt, that means that, certain things that all the monies that we were looking to get released for us that we were awarded would potentially be being held up. So a 30 unit development that we are getting ready to break ground on, the funding could be paused to where now, that project that was getting ready to be finished in an 18-month timeline is going to be dragged out a little bit further to where now those 30 units that was 30 people that had now had housing, and we have a housing crisis here right now for sure, that now that trickle down effect that was brought up earlier is happening here. So it's not only, yeah, I could be looking at, yeah, get a nice development fee, but no, it's the people that we're getting ready to utilize and occupy those spaces. They have to wait longer now because um, these two sides couldn't get together so that we didn't have this government shutdown. And even across the board, housing is an issue. And, we were looking just to start here on the local level and then expand nationwide to emulate what it is that we are doing here. So it's very interesting to see how much it does affect, healthcare, housing, and all the types of sectors. And um, I'm complete.
I mean, you brought up a point. The only thing, not so much I'm pushing back on, but just for clarity. The same way when I had the slides up and I showed that the last time the government shut down, it was the same individual in the White House, and it lasted 5 weeks. He precipitated that the last time. Do you think if Donald Trump was in the space of truly governing for the people, for the whole country, would we be in a space where we're about to experience another shutdown? This starts and ends at the Oval. See, and that's part of being aware of how sometimes how government works. As I stated earlier, the Congress, the United States Congress, which encompasses the Senate and the House of Representatives, have the power of the purse. Since January 20th, when the Senate became controlled by the Republican Party and the House, which meant we the Speaker of the House, which is the third ranking member after the President and the Vice President. The President with the most power is the third highest individual of the whole government is the Speaker of the House. From a pro tem standpoint, the vice president is the president of the Senate. That's why if the Senate was more deadlocked and the president of the Senate, which happens to be the vice president, can go and vote. His vote can be the thing that will make something go back and forth. Just like when Kamala Harris was the vice president, there was like one or two votes when Biden was president, when it was like 50-50, and she can come in when she was vice president and cast a vote in the Senate, and it would go with it, whatever way that it was going to go. So as much as Mr. Grinley was talking about watching J.D. Vance, J.D. Vance is almost like being in a space of being groomed. He's watching all these moves. He's getting the blueprint, even though we already knew about Project 2025, Project Esther, all these things about dismantling, getting rid of the Department of Education, all these different things that are just more focused on people of Anglo-Saxon background. Because you got to remember, these are far-right foundations like the Heritage Foundation. And the reason why I have to keep bringing that stuff up, because we have to remember this. This is all part of the game. And the game is about setting things up for long term. That's the reason why they didn't want the slaves. They didn't desire for the slaves to know how to read. They didn't want the slaves. They didn't desire for the slaves to know how to write. Because if you can read and write, that means you can start reasoning. If you start reasoning, that means you're thinking. If you're thinking, that means you can start plotting. If you can start plotting, that means you can start preparing. If you start preparing, now you start to recognize how everything is moving around us. Now it's, the people who felt like they were superior can understand now that they're not superior. That's why this whole attack is so petty. Because you got to just look at it from the real binary intrinsic standpoint. Donald Trump, to become the 45th president, beat a white woman. And when he came in, he continued his vitriol towards, in some sense, against women that look like him. Fast forward 8 years. Because in 2020, he lost to a white male. Now we move to 2024. He loses to a black female is going up against him for the highest office in the land. And once again, regardless if you like the woman or not, but once again, the United States of America showed its misogyny. And what ends up happening? We're not talking about years of this stuff happening. We're talking about in a matter of months. By using Elon Musk as his lapdog, they systemically got rid of over 300,000 Black women off the federal rolls of employment. And we don't see that there's something wrong with this picture. Or sometimes we can play the space of, I wasn't aware. Or we can play the space, why does it seems a little rougher in my city or my neighborhood, or people are kind of on edge, or attitudes are a little bit. Wait a minute. Because that whole hierarchy of needs have been disrupted. Then you have a blueprint where you have this man who can bald-faced lie. I never heard of Project 2025. I never heard of it. But as soon as he gets sworn, every single part of all the stuff that's in that 900-page plus document, they're implementing. It's not about it's a Christian-based thing. They don't even think about us as Christians. Now this is where we have to be more than faithful. Now we have to stay woke. Because it's been one thing that says, oh, this document is to make sure, those who have the Christian faith, this is about Christian faith, Christian faith, Christian faith. No. And when you're not aware, that means you're liable to be picked off. You're liable. ChatGPT, Trump is threatened not in the personal sense, but Black women represent. Let me see what Nicole's sharing here. This is perhaps good. But because Black women represent a triple challenge, a reliable voting bloc against him, a set of highly visible leaders willing to call him out, and a symbolic defiance of the race and gender hierarchies that anchor his political brand. Well said. Well said. See, when it was attack on Black men, in some ways it was more systemic because, see, that was wicked because if you attack the men or attempt to incarcerate the men, that means the women who desire to build family and have that desire, if they have that desire within themselves to find competent partners to be with, to develop a legacy and build a life together with someone, now they're looking someplace else. Now, all of a sudden, when you start to fix that, and now you got highly educated Black women, which is very empowering and very beneficial because the children are going to speak their mother tongue. That's why technically you shouldn't be dealing with people that are moving in ignorance, because you have to look at what they're going to impart into their children. Because we all speak our mother tongue until we get the opportunity to start to reason. So this attack on Black women is part of the game. Think about that. But in some ways, they're hoping we don't think about that. That's why when you hear all this foolishness about we're getting rid of wokeism and we're going to send federal troops to Portland and we're going to send them to Memphis and we're going to send them here and we're going to send them there, it seems like, wait, whoa, whoa, whoa. It seems like you either send them to cities where people have some semblance of intelligence or are starting to see past your BS. And they're not genuflexing before the fake crown and recognizing that this is a republic about we the people. That's the reason why this country was founded. From people who left Europe running away from monarchies. But this man is so enlightened with dictators and despots and monarchs, as if he feels, and authoritarianism, that is what is being implemented. Before we say, oh, he's trying to be authoritarian. No, we're already there. We don't have to guess. We're dealing with an authoritarian situation. And if we don't push back, we'll turn around and his catchphrase will come to life or come into fruition. Because the America he's talking about being great again was the one where, as they would say, there were white fountains and there were colored fountains. And I know I'm not going to be a participant in that. Or not have a voice in saying, yo, I'm going to speak up in my community and continue to be one of those that's going to give a clarion call and keep generating discussions and the conversations that we have to stay woke. Because as Dr. Cheryl Clarke alluded to, it's not only the conversations that me and her are having with our own respective family, but then how do we translate that information out and say, are you having these conversations with your family? Are we recognizing that, as Calvin stated, he's working for a company that's attempting to be helpful to individuals who are either marginalized or in a certain economic bracket. That now that could be halted or be affected because the people in the top 10% don't care. And even those people in those red states who, got caught up with their lack of education, oh, I'm just going to vote for him because I'm a white nationalist. Spell nationalist, if you can. But they use that to get in, and not even recognize you even voting against your own self-interest, which allows for authoritarianism to take hold. Come on now, most presidents would hear, oh, there's a potential shutdown. You know how many times that the government was potentially shut down when Biden was president? I think they said it was between 7 to 10 times, and each time there wasn't a shutdown. Because you had a president that said this, wait a minute, this is not about me. This is not about what I want to be selfish. Kiss the fake ring. No, this is not about me. Yo, we can't have a shutdown. This is going to affect these people who are workers, it's going to affect our military, it's going to affect families. Yo, how can we get into a room and have a conversation and really, really govern effectively? And it's not about you getting what you want or y'all get what you want. No, we're going to come in this room, we're going to have a conversation, we're going to meet somewhere in the middle where we should be at, not on these extremes, and say, how are we taking care of the people? Not one shutdown. But as we just showed, and I made sure I got my data correct before I share anything. The last shutdown happened during 2018 going into 2019. So think about that. 2018, 2019, because that happened in December. That means people for about 5 weeks going into the Christmas season, coming into the new year, was figuring out, yo, how am I even take care? Did I take care of my family in regards to having a good Christmas? Who cares about them? I only care about myself. Oh, we won't negotiate. We won't get the government back open after 5 weeks. And I thank Mr. Johnson for sharing the data today. After like 2 pay cycles, some of these people, that means they're not paying their rent, paying your utility bill. We all have cell phones. We all hopefully have at least are paying for some level of internet or some sort of access so we can be aware of what's going on from a global standpoint. So all these responsibilities, God forbid if you have a car note. And we're not even going to talk about food prices. Come on. We have to stay woke. We have to stay aware. And there's a level of wickedness that when we bring it about from a faith-based now possibility, how we have to deal with principalities and be able to point back in their fingers like, yo, wait a minute, we gotta speak to power, but like, yo, this is not right. This is not right. When the Prime Minister of Israel spoke at the UN last Friday, and you had about close to 40% of the delegates got up and walked out the room. We don't want to hear you. You're really become closer to almost like a war criminal. What are you doing to these people? We have rock stones and y'all shooting artillery or shooting missiles. But you want to call them terrorists. You have to be very mindful. This is a different game. And what ends up happening is if we're stuck in a space where we feel as if, I just worry about me and mine. They have won. And I'm not talking about they as in the government. What I'm saying they have won is those who are really positioning all these things to really go about in a certain way. That's where the wokeism comes and kicks in. This is where wait a minute, no. This is a clarion call. It's not a government shutdown. Oh my God, we're having a conversation about the government shutdown because we're worried about the government. No, it's not worry. It's understanding. It's part of the chessboard. Everything this man has been doing, as much as Dr. Cheryl tells you, don't call the man, that certain words being derogatory. He's still the president. Yeah, he's still the president, but you can call people doing things stupidly stupid. But I have to actually take that back. It's not being stupid. It's being systemic. That's another S word. When you're systemically removing people, and now you're going to utilize this government shutdown to say, oh no, some of these people that are being furloughed, oh no, I'd probably get rid of another 100,000, 200,000 workers. Whoa, 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 whoa. Wait. So you can't even point at the Democrats saying, wait a minute, they didn't negotiate and they didn't come to a compromise. Compromise for what? For someone who's not coming to the table to negotiate? Wait a minute. If you're not seeing the game and seeing how this thing is very distasteful, it's like, wait a minute, pause. So if we don't do exactly what you say, like you're some sort of king, you're not coming to the negotiation table, but you're making cuts that can affect millions upon millions of people, especially from a healthcare standpoint. When we know that, yeah, that's a perfect word, Mr. Sampson, strategic. And now we know that COVID is still running around in its various variants. We're moving towards the colder season, whereas we know before that's when COVID started to ramp up because now people are more in those spaces in enclosed environments. You got this other brilliant one, since my wife doesn't like me to call people stupid, an RFK who's trying to get rid of vaccine mandates and stuff like that for children. And so it's like, wait a minute, what? You don't see the game? But they want to make wokeism wrong. Oh my God. What are we supposed to be aware about? Wait. I have family. I have young people who I care about. They don't have to be my blood for me to care about them. Me being a former school teacher and an educator, I think about those young people in those urban areas. If they cut some of these things and all of a sudden, do we want measles, mumps, or rubella running around again? Are we starting to hear that people getting polio once again? Have we lost our beloved minds? Let's see. Ms. Johnson, as always, wealth of information. Selective weakening of agencies Republicans oppose. Republicans may highlight the lack of harm during these pauses to push for downsizing. No, he already said it. Trump already came out. See, that's one thing about you sometimes wonder if he got a hot mic. It's like, yo, the mic was on. You shouldn't have said that. No. These people are so emboldened these days that he said it. And then put out that stupid post with making Hakeem Jeffries look like he's Mexican with a sombrero on his face and a fake mustache. I was like, this is the president of the United States. This is what we do. This is the president, not someone else's account, not some low level, the president's account on his own social media platform. Wait a minute, this is the person that we're dealing with? He already said, and that's what makes it even more wicked about this whole thing. It's not something about being woke and just being aware and it's a government shutdown. It's like, wait a minute, this man is going to use this shutdown to fire and get rid of more workers. Who would do that? Think about that. You will not negotiate in good faith because you're supposed to be the person in the biggest chair of responsibility in the land who doesn't care about people. That's why America is going to get just exactly what they voted for. And we have to stay woke enough to be like, yo, maybe Mr. Sampson's going to have to give some, showing people how to handle a gun. Or Mr. Davis was here, the same thing. This is how you hold a gun. Make sure you have something that you can handle. Get your concealed license or whatever the case. because this is one of the many strategic moves is to weaken society and swoop in like the savior. Exactly. Exactly. Oh, because of me. That's the reason.